The title of my lesson today is Esau and the White Man. Today's date is September 23rd, 2018. I'll begin by reading from Genesis chapter 25. I'll start by reading from Genesis chapter 25. I'll begin with verse 21. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. Then verse 23 says, And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. It's funny that the Christian church didn't talk much about this, and I've been to many Christian churches. Been through Bible college as well, and many different church organizations over the years, and they didn't major on this. They hardly talked about it. In fact, I didn't know much except that there was Jacob and Esau, and they were struggling in the womb, and one lost the birthright, and then the other one became Israel. That's it. When I came into the Hebrew Israelite understanding, there was a lot of talk about Jacob and Esau, with most people that I heard teaching it saying that Esau is the white man. Of course, there are some who teach otherwise, but they say Esau is the white man. I was planning on looking into it, and I had a sheet of paper. Actually, I'm looking at it now. It's been sitting down there for about a full year, where I started to jot down, like I made a chart, and I was starting to study out to try to see if I could figure out through the scriptures and maybe a little history as well who this Esau was, if he was really the white man. Not because I didn't believe the camp teachers, but of course you should just study as well on your own, right? So I was trying to study it out, but I left it alone. As I said, it's a really complicated topic, so I'm just going to keep focusing on my New Testament is Fake series, and when I learn the Torah some more, maybe in another 10 years, and I'll really look at this whole Esau stuff. But at the time when I came in, Hebrew Israelites loved to teach about Jacob and Esau. They loved talking about Esau as a white man, and it's a big thing. Now, I don't believe the Torah anymore like I did at first, but I'm making the video because someone just posted up a picture of the white man, or a picture where they were talking something about the white man, and it prompted me to make the video. They weren't talking about Jacob and Esau, but it brought my mind to this. Now I'll run down to verse 25 and 26. And the first came out red. By the way, verse 24, it said that twins were in her womb. And the first came out red, all over like an hairy garment. And they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare him. Now, this Jacob and Esau were the sons of Isaac and Rebekah. And I think they're the first twins to be noted in the Torah. What we would agree on quickly is that this was a Hebrew household. So wherever you find Jacob and Esau in the scriptures, they are Hebrews. This also means if Jacob and Esau are around today in 2018, they are Hebrews. Does a leopard change its spots and so on, right? And we're taught that you cannot change your nation. You can change what you call yourself, but before the eyes of the Most High, as the teaching goes from the Torah camps, you are your nation that you were born into, and that part just doesn't change. So we're looking at Hebrews here. Jacob, Esau, Isaac, Rebekah. That means that if they're telling us that Esau is a white man, and the Romans, they say, are Esau because they have this thing where they love to say Edom. How do they say Edom is in modern Jewry? Something like that. That could mean Edom is modern Jewry, or Edom is just in it, which means modern Jewry is made up of other people, but Edom is inside of it, like he's hiding in it. But I think maybe mostly they just mean modern Jewry is Esau. So the Jews today, they're saying is Esau. But Hebrew Israelites distance themselves from that because they say we are black, we are the Negro, and we are the real Israelites. So we are actually Jacob. That's what the teaching says. Now, as I think this through, then my mind comes back to the Romans. If the Romans are said to be Esau, then that means the Romans are, according to the teachings that I mostly heard, I would then have to say that they were teaching me that the Romans are really Jews, or basically the Romans are Hebrews. Now I know not every Israelite teach that, because I have some teachers that I used to listen to a lot, and they didn't necessarily believe it, but a lot of other people were teaching that and still continue to teach. So, I mean, if I go by the main body of teaching that I heard, more popularized, then if the white man is Esau, that means he's a Hebrew. And if this white man is the Roman from the Roman Empire, who made their way through the Ottoman Empire too and so on, and still runs the world today, then that same Roman Empire white person was Esau, was a Hebrew, which means that the Romans were born of, or came out of, Isaac and Rebekah. So all those Hebrew Israelite teachers that are teaching this stuff, they're basically letting me know that the great-grandparents of the Romans, of the Roman Empire, like of the Caesars and the Pilates and so on, and the Herods, that their great-great-parents were Isaac and Rebekah. That really seems a little bit odd. But anyway, if we try to make the Bible walk true to what they're teaching, then this is like a sibling rivalry gone really, really bad, where this Esau dominated Jacob from in the times of the New Testament and a little before that, and up until today. If Esau is from the Roman Empire, then doesn't that mean that all the top people today, including the Jews, are Esau, if that teaching is correct? But the Jews themselves say somebody else is Esau. Meaning the Jews in Israel, they say that, right? But among Hebrew Israelites, most of them seem to be saying that these Romans are Hebrew Esau. It just seems kind of strange to me because the Hebrews just straight out look like your average Negro. But then we've got a white-looking, straight-haired, straight-nosed Esau as a Hebrew born in the same house. And the parents weren't freaking out when this person got pushed out of the womb of Rebekah. Well, to be fair, it did say something about this hair and redness, but to have said that he was a white person the way we know white people today, that would have really made the story more shocking. Because you can't really hide it that way. It's like if I were to write a modern edition now of the Bible, my own version, I would then say that one came out as a Negro with his regular kaya, like we say in Jamaica, or nappy here. It's like the guy, regular guy in the hood. And the other, his brother, came out as a European, a white European, I should say, of the Commonwealth nations that ran slavery and that kind of stuff, right? So just to make it very clear to everybody that this is what happened. He didn't come out like a mulatto. He didn't come out like a very, 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 very pale skinned Negro. He came out as a white European out of Rebekah. And Isaac was still trying to give him a blessing. Now, as a Hebrew, they would have known the Hebrew tongue, wouldn't they? In fact, it would not be strange for anyone to say that this Jacob and Esau would have started out having the language of each other. So they would have been speaking the same language initially. So by the time the Romans then was dominating the land of Israel in the New Testament times when Jesus was there, that means Jesus' brothers, the Romans, would have been Esau. So basically Jesus and the Romans were relatives. They would have looked different from Jesus being a Negro if Jesus lived. And Jesus doesn't note anything about them along that line. Nobody, is concerned about showing any of this kind of stuff. He doesn't try to save his own brother when it seems that the New Testament is saying he came to save everybody. Because even Paul in the New Testament is reaching out to the Gentiles. And nobody tell me that the Gentiles are the world of the Israelites, because I smashed that already and nobody wants to respond to that. So Paul is going out to the Gentiles, and but Jesus is there and he doesn't reach out to his own brother, while the disciples are going out to Gentiles. So Jesus is trying to save the whole world, but he doesn't do anything about his brother right there, the Roman. Now, if they're speaking the same language, nothing is shown in the scriptures from the Torah to the New Testament that Esau went away and radically changed his language so that he no longer speaks the Hebrew. But what we understand by New Testament times is that they were speaking a different language than the Hebrews. And we know the whole deal with the Greek and the Latin, but they don't seem to be all up in the Hebrew. So they take over the Hebrews, who themselves are Hebrews. They take over Jacob, and they act like they don't know the Hebrew language. In addition to that, as I may have pointed out on an earlier lesson, that the story goes that has been written, you can find this online and whatever books there are there, I can't remember where, but also Torah teachers taught this, that when the Romans went and took Jerusalem now, and they're beating up the Hebrews, when they conquered them, they ran into the temple looking for their God, the God of the Hebrews. And they're like, where's your God? Where's your Yahweh God? They couldn't find him because every time they conquer people, like, in old times, people would take the gods. Well, sometimes, I guess, to show that they've conquered the gods. They didn't find any God there. And this is used by Torah-believing persons, plus Christians, to say it's because the God of the Hebrews, or the God Yahweh, is invisible. So it's different from other gods. So that's why when they went to the temple as Romans looking for the God of the Hebrews, they didn't find him. Like, they saw other stuff in there, the drapery and whatever else they see in their candlesticks or whatever. But they didn't find Yahweh because Yahweh is invisible. He's the most powerful God on earth. And I asked already the question, why is it that the Romans, white people, the Romans, Esau, who was a Hebrew, who was born in a Hebrew house, the Hebrew parents, did not know that the Hebrew God cannot be seen, so that they're rushing into the temple to go and physically confiscate the invisible, intangible Hebrew God of their fathers, because it's not just the father of Jacob. Don't you see something is strange? Because Yahweh would then have been Esau's God as well, no matter what else he takes on. Yahweh would have been his first God, born in a Hebrew house, but he's running in. Now, Esau vowed to destroy Jacob, and he's spending the last dime in his pocket, if needs to get revenge on Jacob over the whole birthright thing. So, with that, he would have increased his prowess and knowledge in every way of warfare and of strategies and so on to deal with this Jacob problem. So he would have remained knowledgeable of Jacob's whereabouts, his movements and so on, and keep abreast of his rituals and whatever. He would have known all of Jacob's rituals and feast days and his whatever, if even to attack them sometimes when they're having their Sabbaths and so on, which I think the Apocrypha said at one time that I think the Greeks had attacked one of the Hebrew groups on the Sabbath. So you see, so now if Esau is the white man, why is it that as the Roman, he did not know that the God could not be seen? Because that's not something you would forget. You are born to Hebrew parents who have a rich heritage. The whole Noah thing and coming from Adam and Noah and all them and Abraham and so on. And you know you are the God your God is the only God known in this house of Isaac and Rebekah that cannot be seen compared to all the other gods. And all the other gods are made with hands. And you forget that information so that you go and try to pick him up. And this is the book we believe in and the religious stuff that we believe in, that's studied with many, like millions of other stories in the Apocrypha and outside of the Apocrypha, just in other writings in history, to create as much confusion as possible around the book, so that you feel that the truth is that the book is true, but the stories are confusing us, so just ignore the stories. You see, if the book is that true, no story can actually bring the book into doubt. I know you say, no, that don't make sense. Of course it does. Because if the book is true, then it would be able to maintain its clarity all throughout, and there should be no lie or deception more powerful than the truth contained therein. Or that would then mean that a man can write another book to destroy and confuse the truth and the wisdom of the Torah of God. So God can give a writing and the finger of God wrote, but a man can just use his pen that isn't even like the modern pen, where he has to keep dipping it in ink to let it continue to write with his primitive paper. He can just come and write like that, and then write away the truth and the wisdom of the Torah of the Lord God of the Hebrews. So that you are confused once you see his writing. You are confused. even though you're looking at the writing made by the fair finger of God. If God with his finger wrote at Sinai and gave all this Torah, no writing from Esau or anybody else on earth can take you away from the clarity of what is in the book that God gave. The reason why it is able to do that is because God did not give the book. Tell me which man is going to move the sun out of its course. Tell me. Why haven't they yet picked up one of the great pyramids and put them inside their museum? They're taking up other statues. So if the book really is of God, no writing from mere mortal can actually bring confusion, or that means the darkness of man can overcome the light of God. This book is purely a work of man. Now let me look at the picture now to read from it. This picture on Twitter that let me make this. I'll just say briefly it's by this person called Angela. And the tweet here says Black History 365 24/7. I guess they're giving Black History every day. And the picture, not going to bother post it up on this because people are crying sometimes over pictures and videos or whatever that you use sometimes. So I'll just describe. It's just a picture of ancient Egyptians showing, of course, that they're Negro, and the head of the Sphinx and pharaoh heads and so on, and Nubian armies, so on, right? And showing the dreads, the locks, and the ancient Africans and so on, right? And then above it, there's a small writing that says, in the year 1787, upon seeing all of the evidence of the African in Egypt, Count Constantine de Volney wrote, just think, so he was a white man, he says, just think that this race of black men today, our slave and the object of our scorn, is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech. Now, I never knew of this Count Constantine de Volney, so I'm going to look him up some more, but I briefly looked up just to make the video here. So I'm glad when I learn stuff, right, from other people here. But obviously, it's just trying to let you know that this white man, who would then, I guess, have to be, for those camps that teach it, a Hebrew Esau, who took us into slavery. This white man is saying that the Egyptians were black and we hate them. It's funny that this teaching that says Esau is a white man, if he is, then why is this white man who is a Hebrew, supposedly called Esau, talking about a race of black men as if he himself is not the brother? But he's saying it in a way that makes it sound like these are completely different people. But he's saying that we owe our arts and sciences to them, and even the use of speech. Now, this is really what let me make the video, the use of speech. Didn't Esau, the Hebrew, have speech in the Torah when he was born to Rebekah and Isaac? He was clearly having speech. He would have known the Hebrew. But he's telling us that white people, or the white European, because we understand that the original European was black, but the white European is telling you that they got even the use of speech from these black men, the Egyptians, these Africans. As if they're trying to tell us that they didn't have the power or the use of speech prior to meeting this African group of people, the Egyptians. And I know there's teaching out there that talks about how white people didn't even have their own language and so on and whatever. So that's interesting to look into. The more I learn, I'm going to have to study that out some more. But he's clearly here saying we didn't have the use of speech before we came across these people. So how then, for those Hebrew camps teaching that Esau is a white man, can the white man not have the use of speech until he meets these Egyptians in modern times, when way before that he would have been a Hebrew speaking Hebrew in the house he was born into, to Hebrew parents, Isaac and Rebekah? That is very odd. But you see, religion makes you just stick to the same dumb stuff. It don't make sense, but you just have to keep teaching it. Well, I already taught this to my people in my camp, so I can't stop now. Like, religion just makes you, it's refreshing to see the religious person who actually changes something the more they learn. Because some actually do. But most religious people, whether you're in Christianity or Hebrew Israelite stuff, most religious people, they don't change stuff. Most religious people just don't bother with that. Now, let me read from this one website briefly here. freemaninstitute.com/sphinx.htm. And its title was The Sphinx of Giza Modeled After an African. And they're talking about the same guy here, Count Constantine de Volney. In 1787, Count Constantine de Volney, a French nobleman, philosopher, historian, orientalist, and politician, embarked on a journey to the east in late 1782 and reached Ottoman Egypt, where he spent nearly 7 months. Constantine de Volney was troubled much by the institution of slavery. His expressed opinion that the ancient Egyptians were black Africans much departed from the typical European view of the late 18th century, but it gave many people cause for reflection. So you see, they were changing knowledge from hundreds of years ago, long time ago, to set up this idea that the ancient Egyptians were not blacks. So they were teaching it to their own people that they were white all along. And then they're going by, from what I was reading up some more, that they're going by even like the skulls of some of these black people that they found, just based on their skulls and so on, that it can be shown that even they would have been white because of the skulls. Even the skulls found in Europe. But then when you understand that the original European was black, then you can understand that. But during his visit to Egypt, he expressed amazement that the Egyptians, whose civilization was greatly admired in Europe, were not white. All the Egyptians, wrote de Volney, have a bloated face, puffed up eyes, flat nose, thick lips. In a word, the true face of the mulatto. I was tempted to attribute it to the climate, but when I visited the Sphinx, its appearance gave me the key to the riddle. On seeing that head, typically Negro, in all its features, I remembered the remarkable passage where Herodotus says, "As for me, I judged the Colchians to be a colony of the Egyptians because, like them, they are black with woolly hair." Anyway, I'll just wrap it right there. But just basically just showing you that I'm just starting to look at this guy, and anyone who wants to look upon him who has never heard of him, you can check him out and see what he was saying. And then they said down here, in other words, the ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same stock as all the autochthonous peoples of Africa. And it goes on, right? So this supposed white Esau, who would have been of the same people as the Romans, is supposed to, by some teaching, to be a white Hebrew from the house of a Negro Hebrew family born to Isaac and Rebekah. This supposed white Esau, who would have been of the same people as the Romans, is supposed to, by some teaching, to be a white Hebrew from the house of a Negro Hebrew family born to Isaac and Rebekah. Does that make sense?